Right. Cancer Research UK statistics show that in 2014, only 19% of cancers were linked in any way to smoking. By now, only 19% of the British population still smokes tobacco. Official statistics vary slightly, yet there were 356,000 new cases of cancer and 163,444 deaths. Approximately 32,690 smokers and 130,000 non-smokers. Only 2 out of 5 cancers were preventable, and only 1 in 5 cases of the disease attributed to cigarettes. Only 18% of secondary school children had ever smoked a cigarette. In the year 2015, there are 2.5 million people living with cancer in the UK, a rise of 500,000 in 5 years. The population of Great Britain at this time is approximately 65 million people. 26% of the population has one form of cancer or another. In 2016, there were 175,000 fatalities from cancer, an increase of 64,000 in 41 years since 1975, when there were only 111,000 deaths from the disease in the United Kingdom. 175,000 minus 111,000 equals 64,000. Yet only 17% of the population of Britain still smoked cigarettes, compared to 50% in the 1950s, when cancer deaths were only 18,318. Approximately 15% of the UK are ex-smokers. We are now living in the year 2017, and the UK government is enforcing even stronger tobacco regulations. Packets of cigarettes and tobacco must now show a 75% pictorial health warning and have to be olive green in colour. John Player Army, Benson and Hedges Super Commandos, Dunhill Camouflage, which makes the job of the tobacco staff in the supermarket, off-licence and newsagents almost impossible to tell one brand of cigarettes from another, especially when the cigars have to be hidden behind a shutter in the kiosk. Goodbye JPS Black. Cigarettes can now only be sold in packets of 20. Selling 10 cigarettes or 15 or 17 is illegal. Therefore, poor people who cannot afford to pay for 20 cigarettes a day are being persecuted because they simply do not have the cash to buy a packet of 20s. So they have to give up smoking for one day so that they can afford to buy their fags. Some light smokers only smoke 10 cigarettes a day. I smoke 3 cigars every hour when I am working. Fortunately, I work outdoors for half the day being a postman. In fact, when I'm not working, I normally smoke 4 roll-ups while I'm having my early morning shit on the toilet, playing Scrabble on my Galaxy phone, which often takes up to half an hour. I do enjoy clearing my bowels on Sunday mornings and on my days off work. Anyway, I'm digressing. Cigarettes in 2017 must now be sold only in cartons of 20, and hand-rolling tobacco can only be sold in 30-gram or 50-gram packets. The price of tobacco has increased from £8 for a 25-gram to £11 for a 30-gram pouch. 25-gram, 12.5-gram, half an ounce or smaller are now illegal. Sounds exactly like a George Orwell novel, doesn't it? No. So again, poor people who used to buy a small pouch of tobacco to smoke on their 5 minutes break from work, to make their pitiful dull lives bearable for a few seconds of warm soft grey smoke. And some very poor folk, like the thousands of homeless people who sleep on the streets of London every night of the year, in cardboard boxes and wrapped in filthy thin blankets stinking of piss and beer, in the bleakest of freezing cold winters, which they had begged of some stupid rich tourist or kind-hearted people who they are reduced to begging upon. Often, I might say, to buy a can of Tennant's super strong lager, who could only afford a tiny packet of tobacco to warm their lungs on a freezing, chilly winter's night, are now reduced, as many tramps have been doing for so many years, myself included when I was unemployed, to smoking the occasional cigarette butt that they find trampled on the street pavement, like gold dust to a tramp these days. Believe me, when you have no money at all, the one thing you really crave for is a cigarette above food and alcohol. But to be truly honest with myself, I must admit, if you are homeless and living on the street for any length of time in any town or city of Britain, or the rest of the world for that matter, a big can of Tennant's extra strong lager will hopefully numb your senses to the icy winter wind, and at least knock you unconscious for another day or two, so that you can sleep and dream without facing the harsh cold world around you. Personally, when I was unemployed from 1994 to 1996, I was sacked from my job as a petrol garage attendant for having long hair, a goatee beard and round tinted spectacles, honestly. I spent about £5 a week on food. Potatoes, £1, margarine, £1, cheese, £1, 4 tins of cheap baked beans, £1 and the occasional pint of milk. I also spent about £5 per week on drinks, and when I say drink, I mean coffee. Always Nescafe. I hate cheap coffee. A packet of tea bags every month, and the occasional carton of eggs, 50p for 6. For my final treat of the week, when I was unemployed, a long time ago, I also bought a 25-gram pouch of rolling tobacco. I was getting paid £25 a week at one point for several months. The rest of my benefit just about paid for gas, electricity and a fucking television bloody licence. Not to mention television rental charges. My little trick was to save up all my cigarette butts and keep them in an old tobacco tin. And then after day 4, when I had no money left to buy tobacco but a few coins to buy food, I would roll up my cigarette butts and smoke them until the next gyro day. But that was 20 years ago. Another law was passed in 2016, making it illegal to smoke a car. Another law was passed in 2016, making it illegal to smoke in a car with a passenger who is under the age of 18. Is a 17-year-old really a child? At 16, you are old enough to have sex and get married, luckily whether you are straight or gay these days. But you are not old enough to read a pornographic magazine or fuck on your webcam. You are old enough to ride a 50cc motorbike when you are 16. Far more dangerous than smoking a cigarette, don't you think? Mind you, bikers can't really light a cigarette when they are riding a motorcycle, can they? Unless they are Marlon Brando in the Wild Ones. The wind would blow it out, wouldn't it? You're old enough to drive a car when you are 17, but you are not old enough to smoke cigarettes, buy alcohol, or sit in a smoker's car until you are 18 years old. In the year 2016, a 12.5 gram of tobacco, half an ounce, costs about £5. In the year 17, it is legal to sell 12.5 gram of tobacco. A packet of 20 cigarettes now costs between £8 and £10. undoubtedly increasing to £15 after the budget in the very near future. A 30-gram pouch of rolling tobacco costs approximately £10.50, plus £1.10 for rolling papers, and a 50-gram pouch costs between £18 and £20. The price of tobacco and cigarettes has doubled in 10 years, a price rise of 100%. How are the poor people supposed to enjoy their lives if they cannot even afford the simplest pleasure of a cigarette? Oh, hang on. Actually, vaping e-cigarettes has now also been banned in many pubs, clubs and restaurants in the United Kingdom. Nah. Are you aware of the fact that when you smoke an electronic cigarette, you are not smoking water vapour, as the advertisement suggests? The e-liquid in your vapes contains propylene, glyco, flavourings, glycerine and nicotine, unless you live in Australia, where nicotine e-cigarettes are illegal. Are all these chemicals really safe? Tobacco is a plant that grows naturally in the planet Earth. Do you honestly believe that e-cigs are better for your health than the leaves of a herb? Although childhood cancer is still quite rare, approximately 1,600 new cases per annum in the 21st century, the figures have risen by 29% since the 1970s. How many 5-year-old children do you know who smoke cigarettes? In 1950, 50% of the population of the UK were smokers, 25 million people, and yet there were only 18,318 deaths from cancer. In 2016, only 17% of Britons smoked cigarettes, and there were 175,000 cancer deaths. I read in a nursing article recently on the internet that 4 out of 5 cancer patients had never smoked a cigarette. That is an increase of cancer of just over 850% in just 66 years. 850%. 18,318 times 9.5 equals 174,021. Coincidentally, ever since most of the general public has been able to afford to drive petrol-driven cars, which pump out carbon monoxide into the atmosphere of every town and city in the world every second of every day and night, yet there has been a decrease in smokers of 66%. If you attach a hose to the exhaust pipe of your car and put the other end through a slightly open window, you'll be dead within half an hour of turning the ignition key. If you smoke tobacco for 50 years, you will probably end up with a bit of a cough. Tobacco is a herb that grows naturally on planet Earth. Petrol is a thick brown greasy oil that you burn in the engine of your car. If smoking is decreasing and cancer is increasing, then how can cigarettes and tobacco be to blame for cancer? 4 out of 5 patients with cancer are non-smokers. I'll say that again. 4 out of 5 cancer patients are non-smokers, 80% of cases. So what is cancer? Cancer occurs when the process of cell regeneration breaks down. Normally the body creates new cells to replace old or damaged ones. Cancer Research UK states that cancer is when abnormal cells divide in an uncontrolled way. Some cancers spread to other tissues in the body. According to Cancer Research UK, 1 in 2 people will get one form of cancer or another in their lifetime. 50% of cancers are diagnosed in people over the age of 70 years. People are living much longer lives than they did 50 years ago. So of course, as you get older, your cells will get older too, and eventually the body will deteriorate, but that is just life. A recent GP survey stated that only 40% of cancers were related to diet, obesity, lack of exercise or physical activity, alcohol or smoking, isn't it always? 83% of Britons are non-smokers and only 17% smoke cigarettes. Yet according to research, 50% of the population will develop cancer. Tough luck, non-smokers. Actually, I've been a postman for nearly 20 years. Two friends of mine who worked alongside me at the post office that I am aware of have died from cancer, Ryan and Steve. Both of them were non-smokers. Steve was a keep fit fanatic and a physiotherapist, and Ryan was a semi-professional footballer. His photograph was on the sports page of the local newspaper more than once. Both of them were posting letters for a living in the neighbourhood, walking up and down stairs. Actually, I think it was the chemotherapy and radiotherapy treatment that killed them, worse than the disease. Do you honestly believe that being radioactive is going to make you feel better? You lose your hair, you vomit into the toilet bowl, you lose your appetite and get diarrhoea. Or is it the treatment that kills you? Ryan was even operated on by surgeons. They cut out bits of his liver, kidneys, intestines, and several other cancerous organs. He died in the Isabella Hospice in Welwyn Garden City about a year later. Strangely enough, although smoking is frowned upon in the USA, the sale and possession of marijuana for medical and recreational purposes has been legalised in the states of Alaska, California, Colorado, Oregon, Massachusetts, Maine, Nevada and Washington State. Although Washington DC, District of Columbia, has only legalised personal use of cannabis and not its commercial sale. There are even medical dispensaries that give marijuana on prescription in some states of America. Marijuana has been used as a medicine for some years now, not as a cure, but to help combat the symptoms of many diseases, such as treating nausea and vomiting in the case of AIDS, acquired immune deficiency, HIV, the easing of joint pain in arthritis sufferers, the shaking associated with Parkinson's disease, Tourette's syndrome, stress disorder problems, epilepsy, lupus, and autoimmune disorder. It lowers the pressure in the eyes of people with glaucoma and has been used in the treatment of Alzheimer's, to mention just a few of the herb's medicinal uses. Nicotine also has several beneficial effects, stimulating the brain to increase alertness, creativity, memory and motor skills. It is known to relax the body, ease anxiety and stress, and has possible medical benefits in the treatment of schizophrenia and other neurological disorders. The Daily Express published an article on Monday, October 3rd, 2016, entitled "Why Smoking May Prevent Dementia" by John Fitzpatrick. Nicotine has been found to protect the brain as it ages, meaning that smoking could also help prevent dementia, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, researchers claim. And if 50% of cancers occur in people over the age of 70, then perhaps smoking cigarettes can slow down the effects of cancer as well. Non-smokers tend to forget these facts. The end. P.S. I found another warning on my tobacco pouch this morning. Smoking increases the risk of impotency. I am 50 years old. I read it after my afternoon wank.